data types. There are 4 major data types in Python, which are integer, float, string, and bool. We can also call bool boolean. Integers are positive and negative whole numbers. Floats are numbers with decimal points. Strings are characters, while boolean are true or false. We can always check the type of our data by using type. So if I want to check what type 5.9 is, I can say type 5.9 and I run the cell. You see it gives float. Suppose I have a variable a that holds the number 4 and I check the type of a. We can see the type of a is integer. Again, I have a word, let's say name equal to girl, and I check the type of name. So what's the type of the variable name? And that type is string. I can also check the type of true. We find that here the type is bool. There are several operations which we can perform on a data type. Now, let's see what we can do using the addition operator. We can be able to add integers. If I have my variable a as 5 and b as 6, I can find the sum of these two. Let's say I use c to hold a plus b and print c, then the sum of this will be 11. We can also add integer and string. We can also add integer and float. So suppose I have a float d that is equal to 9.3 and I say e is the sum of a and 9.3, which is d. Then I can print e, and what you find is that you have 14.3, which is a float. Python has an inbuilt function called sum, which can be used to sum two values together. It can be used to form two or more values together. So I can say my variable is f and I want to sum a, b, c, d, and e. So I would use sum and open parenthesis. Then I would have to put it in an iterable object, which could be a list like this, or I could use a tuple like this, and say a, separate them by commas, and e, and then to print f. This prints the sum of all the values. It is also possible to add string. In Python, we call that concatenation. So suppose I have a string, let's say string 1. Now string is a keyword in Python, so we cannot use it to name a variable. Suppose string 1 is hello and string 2 is world. I can add these two strings together. So let me name the variable string 1 and 2. It's equal to string 1 plus string 2. So I'm going to print string 1, 2. This prints hello world. Now what you see here is that it doesn't leave any space. To create a space, we can add quotations and give a space here, then we put a plus sign. When we print this out, it prints hello world. Remember, for strings, you can add strings with string, and this is called concatenation. But I can't do this. If I tell Python to do string 1 plus our variable here f, which is 45.6, and I try to add it with f, Python throws an error to say can only concatenate string to string. So I cannot concatenate string to a number. I have to change it to string. It's possible to change integer or float to string data type. So what can I do? Remember, what is f? F is 45.6. To change f to some other data type, let me say I name this as new f and say this is equal to string. So using the string word, I can change it to string, and I say string f. Then when I type the type of new f, you see new f is string. It means I can perform this operation now and say string 1. Let me copy this and bring it here, plus new f, and this gives me a value. It doesn't throw an error. It is also possible to convert new f back to float by saying new f equal to float new f. So if I find the type of new f, this is now float. But I cannot convert string, that is characters which are not numbers, to float or integer. If I attempt to do that, remember, what is string 1? Let's see what string 1 is and run this. It's hello. If I try to say I want to make it a float and I float string 1, it throws an error, could not convert string to float. So we can only convert a string that is a number back to int or to float, as the case may be. Now we've looked at addition. Next we can look at subtraction. Now let's see what our A and B are. So I want to print them. 5 and 6. So we can subtract and say m is equal to a minus b, and we can print m. So we see this is equal to minus 1. Now we'll go next to multiplication. We can multiply string by a number but not string by string. So let's get back our string 1 and string 2. Let's print them again. This hello world, that is string 1 is hello and string 2 is world. So suppose I want to print hello 5 times. So I can say string 1 multiple. This is equal to, I would say string 1 times 5. So we use the asterisk for multiplication. Now I can print this, and you see it gives us hello, hello, hello. Okay, now suppose I want to make some space. What I do is that I come back here, I'll say string 1, I'll put a plus, and I'll put space here. I'll close this and then multiply by 5. Now you see it gives that space. So I can't multiply a string by another string. I can only multiply a string by an integer. If I attempt to multiply this string by 0, it says can't multiply sequence of non-int of type float. So we are only allowed to multiply string by integers. Now we can multiply int by int, int by float, float by int, like you know. I have a equal to 4, b equal to 6. I can find c, which can be the product of a times b, and I can print c as 24. Okay, so that's that for multiplication. We can go to division. So for division, there are two types of division in Python. We have the normal division and the integer division. Remember that we named A, B, and C. Let's still use A, B, and C as defined above. Suppose I have D as A divided by, or rather C divided by A, and I want to print D. So D is 6.0. Now what do you notice? D is of type float. Anytime you make a division, even if you are dividing integer by integer and the answer should result in a whole number, Python gives you a result as float. If you don't want this, you can use the int keyword to change it to an integer. And now D is now an integer. Now, suppose we want to do a division, say E equal to 24 divided by, or rather C divided by 7, and then we print E. Now we see that we have this large number. Python has a function called round that you can use it to round up to the number of decimal places you want. So let me define E as equal to round. Suppose I want to round E to 2 decimal places. I'll use the keyword round E and then 2 to 2 decimal places. Then I print E. This gives me 3.43. Also, I may be interested in using integer division. What is integer division? Integer division returns the floor when we divide. So let's say F is equal to C divided by 7. When I print F, this is my result. But when I want to do integer division, I use double slashes. So double slashes, and then when I print F, I have 3. So let's go back here. You see it gives you the floor. Suppose I do C divided by 6 and I have just the normal division. It gives me 4.0. Next, we are going to look at modulo. Modulo gives you the results after you divide. Modulo gives you the remainder of division. So let's recall what our variables are: A, B, C, D, and E. Now, suppose I want to use C, which is 24, and divide it by 5. Let's say G is equal to 24, which is C, divided by 5, and I print G. What do we have here? This is 4.8. But remember, in modulo gives us the remainder. So what I do is I'll change this. This uses this symbol, percent, and then I run this. It tells me that the remainder is 4. Lastly, we are going to look at Boolean. The Boolean is just true or false. So all these operations we've been doing, for example, Boolean, which is true or false, in the computer can be seen as 0 or 1. So remember that G is 4. If I ask to print G, this is 4. Then let's say I have a variable H and I say G times true. True means 1. And I ask Python to print H. What Python does is that it does 4 times 1, which is 4. Now, supposing I is equal to G times true, and I print I, suppose I is equal to G times false, and I print I, this gives me 0 because false is 0. Again, if J is equal to G plus true, and then we print J, we have J as 5. So Python says true as 1 and false as 0. Keep on practicing, and then you'll be able to master all of the concepts.